Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday morning, which means it's time for Best Ball Breakfast. I have my friend, a man who is fond of saying usable weeks. It's Michael Leone. We're going to draft a Best Ball Mania team here on Underdog Fantasy. Let's do it.
Bro, I'm telling you, hop in these drafts when these idiot streamers are trying to draft and talk to the chat at the same time. It's so plus EV, bro.
Oh no, I think I accidentally just took Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs. What do we call that? A no-no.
No way, you don't have to set your lineup. That's incredible. And recently eclipsed 23%, and I'd much prefer it to be in the more 21 to 22% range.
All right, KZ, here you go. You want coffee for sound effects? This is it. My Foley artist work. Here you go.
Okay, while you do that, I'm crunching my calculator, seeing how many usable weeks we need to draft in order to win Best Ball Mania 2.
Do you still feel owned whenever you see that video, Mike?
Not when I see the video. I feel owned when I'm doing shows and stuff, and I have to say things, and I say it like there's a quiver in my voice where I'm like, usable weeks.
Have you seen what my new one is that I cannot stop saying, and I get so mad at myself when I say it?
No, what is it?
I say in a vacuum. I've been saying in a vacuum so much.
Yeah, I can see that. I've been trying to, Google synonyms for usable weeks, and let's find some synonyms for usable. I mean, it's getting bad.
It's rough. What's my other one? I've been saying detour a lot, like in the context of we're pissing yellow, so we're always drafting wide receivers. But I'm like, this would be a good spot to take a detour. So in a vacuum and detour are the ones I need to get out of my vocabulary.
Yeah, I definitely say hyper fragile too much, but it's hard because then these words become things that people know exactly what you're talking about. So as ridiculous as they are, I don't know. It's tough. So accessible weeks, serviceable weeks.
Serviceable. Maybe it's more like a euphemism for he's not a fun player to draft, but he will get you the points you need to skirt by. Influencer 101, Leone. That's how we do it around here.
Let's go. I'm not choppy, am I? Am I okay?
Yeah, you seem okay.
Okay, good.
I saw Levitan tweeted out a link to a best ball draft last night, and then I was going to hop in it, but I think I was a little too late. And but I saw one of the replies seemed like he got the 101. So the Influencer 101 picks are flying these days.
It's real. Let me see. I've run pretty pure on it, honestly. I'm afraid to say that, but I've got 13% McCaffrey. So that's close to double.
Yeah, I think I had messaged you early on. I was running really pure. I think I was at 16%. And then this is the first 101 I've had for legit about a month. So, math always wins in the law of big numbers here.
What's crazy is it's not just the CMC edge, but the 2-3 turn, there's a drop off, and then 4-5, there's a drop off. So it's a big edge all the way through.
Yeah. I agree. There's so much. Have you been doing, I guess I haven't gotten enough of the 101s to do funky stuff. I know I've seen the Lamb Amari with Christian McCaffrey has been kind of a popular reach at that range. Is there anything funky you've been doing with it, or just kind of grabbing your Jeffersons and AJ Browns and DK Metcalfs?
I've been boring with it so far. That might change. I'm about 30 drafts in, so I got a ton to do in August because I'm going to max out BBM2. I'm actually going to sign up, I think, for a ridiculous amount of slow drafts today. So maybe as I get really deep into it, I'll start changing it up. But for now, I've just been grabbing different combinations of which tight end is available there. I need to get more Waller. I've got a ton of Kittle and just the standard receivers. It's hard for me to... Because then if you reach on Lamb and Cooper, then you have to reach on Dak at 4-5 too. And I don't know, I feel like you start to give up some of your advantage. I know the flip side to that is Christian McCaffrey, and then the Dallas stack just goes nuclear, and that's what you need to win. But
yeah. Chris in the chat, he's wanting us to, Corey wants us to get weird with our team. Normally when I draft these, it's mostly, Deposit Kingdom and Ship Chasers, and it's extremely wide receiver heavy. But I think we might have somehow pulled this off where there's only a couple others in here. I see Casey, I see Lundar, but we might not have to just go completely nuts in this draft.
I know, that's nice. I was even surprised we made it to where we did without a wide receiver going. And even Casey, I don't think's as wide receiver. I don't know. He's more wide receiver heavy than your average drafter, but might not be. Looks like the back end of this draft might be wide receiver heavy, though. We got this stretch of no running back picks here.
So I definitely slowed down on my after the puppy. Like all of those slow drafts are finally coming to an end, so I'm not on the clock in 40 drafts at every single second. But I did hop in a couple of the Best Ball Mania slow drafts over the week, or fast drafts, I should say, over the weekend, and I did start to just see. I feel a little bit of the masses coming to draft. You know, really weird instructions. Really weird kind of reaches on specific players. And I'm just starting to wonder, is nature healing? Are we getting back to normal draft rooms?
Yes. So I'm looking, I didn't do the ADP Trends article yet. I do the Monday kind of market report for Establish a Run, but I did run the data already. And some of the guys coming up draft boards in the top 100, Kareem Hunt, who I actually like, but we get Kareem Hunt, Trey Sermon, Austin Eckler. So some of the running backs coming up. Devonta Smith is just your casual fish pick here coming up in the 5th, 6th round. And then some of the fallers, like all the wide receivers are starting to gravitate back a little bit. So you start to see it in the data, and I think we'll see it even more the next couple of weeks. So I think now is the time to get in, especially if you're not a streamer, and announcing to all your wide receiver lover friends that you're about to start a draft.
Yeah, and I will say, like, for a while there in those puppies, like from the back end of the draft, I was just almost automatically going 0 RB just because of how quickly the wide receivers flew off the shelves. I think in these new textured rooms, I've been a little bit more okay grabbing like the Aaron Jones with Ridley, grabbing my anchor running back. I'm curious here because I did do a few weeks ago. I did my first hyper fragile from the one. I did the C-Mac, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Najee. Didn't love how my team looked, but that's just because I, missed that wide receiver firepower. But let's see what we're going to have available here because it does look like a couple of those running backs might be there. Of course, we can always go the elite tight end. I kind of cooled on the elite tight end just because I had so many of those teams, but I still obviously love that. What are you thinking here? I'll let you decide these two picks.
Yeah, I think I would, if Kittle's there, I think I would go Kittle, go elite tight end. I just think it's a really big edge. With AJ Brown going, I think for me it's Kittle, CEH, and then we can go with we don't have to do like the crazy hyper fret. I like grabbing 2 when I can. Sometimes it's hard on Underdog because it's harder to make up for the wide receivers later just because the wide receiver ADP is better. But as the wide receiver, if we get more casuals in, that mid-tier wide receiver ADP starts to fall a little bit. It could make a big difference where that 5th, 6th wide receiver you're getting is a little bit better. And then that's where the quantity over quality thing starts to come into play. This CeeDee Lamb love is just crazy right now. I love CeeDee Lamb, but he's going early, Pat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I called you Pat.
It's all right. We're basically in
all the same people, just like playing different roles at different times.
Well, I was gonna say I think there's like multiple factors with the Lamb stuff. It's like 1, he's just a very fun player to draft. Everyone loves their second-year breakouts. 2, we have kind of a little bit of Amari injury concern stuff with the ankle that I think is slightly pushing him up. And then 3, I swear to God, and I wrote about this in the newsletter this morning, every time I log on to Twitter, there's another CeeDee Lamb camp highlight. I feel like it's just him mossing a guy, him making a catch. And so I feel like all of these factors have now just elevated him to that AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson tier, whether that's right or wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It might not even be wrong. It's just when the offseason first started, I thought for sure I was going to be ahead of market on CeeDee Lamb. And I started like right even with the market to start. And now it's gone even higher on Lamb. So I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do because I definitely want to keep getting Lamb exposures. I think that offense could just go. I think either Lamb or Cooper, really. Like one of those two, I think we're drafting very easily in the 2nd round next year, like maybe even early 2nd round.
Yeah. And, one thing I've been thinking about, and it's mainly I'm trying to think through, what's optimal and what is me just getting bored with certain starts. And like one of the two things that I was starting to realize when I was doing a lot of elite quarterback and elite tight end builds is the best available picks late in drafts were often tight ends falling, were often quarterbacks falling. I know we've talked a little bit about Sam Darnold. I mean, guys like that are always available late. So now I've kind of shifted in that, like if I do this elite tight end build, I'm probably not also doing the elite quarterback build or vice versa. How do you think about that? Or is the elite onesie still kind of your preferred construction if you can get it?
I'm a little less likely to do the elite onesie at quarterback just because, like, at a certain point, we definitely need to stockpile wide receivers. Like, even if we're going to get 10 of them, we need a certain level of quality up top for it to work out. And we talked about this on ship chasing a little bit. It's like you can take your home run swing even if we count running back as sort of a onesie position, you can do your home run swing, I feel, at like 2 of the 3 onesie positions. But to do it at all 3 of them, you really start to get thin, especially with the way a wide receiver heavy room. We thought it might not be wide receiver heavy, but it looks like it's switched and got him wide receiver heavy, where we're already somewhat in trouble at this 4-5 turn. It's going to be an annoying 4-5 turn, and that's where it's like, well, do you just take the quarterback?
Right. Yeah.
Because had we not started the way we did, like let's say we had AJ Brown instead of CEH, like I'd feel a little bit better at wide receiver and would be like, let's grab one of the elite quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, we're obviously going to be in volume range, but even by ADP, like you are seeing guys like, I mean, I think T Higgins went 4-1 in this draft. I mean, he's getting really pushed up, but like even based on ADP, as Ayuk goes there, I mean, Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Odell, who do you like here? Obviously these are your rankings, but
yeah,
do you get it all?
I'd probably take Deontay. I think there's a little bit of a tier drop off just because his target share in his healthy games was so huge. Like I'm not a big Deontay stan, but at a certain point that those targets come through. So I like Deontay. Can you look at quarterback?
Yeah. So quarterback, I believe it's going to be everybody. Yeah, except Mahomes. Yeah,
I know. I'd probably go back to wide receiver and just I think we likely need to. And honestly, I don't have a strong feel here. I'd probably go Robbie or Odell unless if we want to stack Steelers. I don't know if we want to stack Steelers.
Let's do Odell here. I kind of like that. I also don't mind the stacking Steelers thing.
This is where I probably don't trust the data even as much as I should, where I think Claypool might be the optimal move there. And you hope the Steelers, like Ben, just is fine and they continue this pretty condensed target tree. And I really get tripped up on that and those correlation pieces where I know I'm not going to want to take Ben late, right? Like it's just, do I want to correlate the Steelers offense or am I hoping for Deontay to have the alpha season? And I think Herzig would probably tell us that we should have taken Claypool and stacked it up. But
yeah,
I kind of like separating.
The only other little tiebreaker I've been doing is the Chiefs and the Steelers do play in that playoff stretch. I think they're the week 16 matchup, so I don't mind a little CEH pit correlation there with my builds. But yeah, that's always just such a gross spot because I like Deontay and Claypool too, and then it just feels so gross to stack them up.
Because you're envisioning some of those games where Ben can't throw the ball more than 7 yards down the field, and if things just crater, it messes with your mind a little bit. I would definitely take elite quarterback if it came back. We're in a spot where we don't really have any stack guys, though.
Yeah, my only thing, like if a Dak or Kyler fell, I do. Although even now, I mean, you're getting some crazy slides on Herbert. Like I've taken Herbert at pick 92 before, so I'm always a little hesitant unless I have, even when I have like a Keenan, I'm still kind of waiting just because for some reason he seems to slip.
Yeah, I've started to drop him down in my ranks a little bit where I think, Russ Wilson's closer to the elite second tier quarterbacks than he is to Herbert. Like I think there's fair gaps there, but Herbert is the clear, what's that, number 7 quarterback before you get into the rest of the guys. And even Hurts now at 8 is, I don't know with the Philly Watson rumors, if that's like a real thing or not, but it's definitely been in the back of my mind. So what are you doing with quarterbacks where you don't really have the stack set up? I guess you can backdoor Dak pretty easily with Gallup and Jarwin. You can backdoor Kyler with Rondale and, dare I say, AJ Green.
Yeah. No, I've been doing that a lot. And I actually, one of the few times, Leone, that when I'm using your ranks that I'll overrule you is I do grab a decent amount of Christian Kirk. He's normally there at ADP or just like a few picks behind. You have him really low in your ranking. So if you're using the ATR ranks, you probably don't get a ton of Kirk, but I like those guys. And I don't even mind, like I've talked about this on shows, like I like the wide receiver 4 guys as these late picks. Like I'll mix in some Cedric Wilson there. We know that all of these Cowboys wide receivers aren't necessarily like a picture of health. And I think Cedric Wilson would be the wide receiver 3 in those scenarios. So I normally don't panic if I miss out on like the premium stack. Same with the Chargers. Like I have no problem taking Josh Palmer and Tyron Johnson late in those scenarios. So I'm normally not trying to like reach on those stacks just to get them.
Yeah, I need to do more backdoor Kylers. I've realized my Kyler exposure is really low because it's kind of like when I'm in that portion of the draft, a lot of the times I'm stacking Allen with Diggs, who I took earlier. I'm stacking Dak with Lamb and Cooper, or I'm not getting any elite quarterbacks. So my exposures have ended up kind of too heavy on one side of the same tier. Like these guys are all in the same tier, and I'm like lopsided just because the way my brain has worked with trying to do the stacks. I have to be more open to the backdoor Kyler stacks.
In their son, I think the Cardinals are much easier for that. I mean, a lot of the teams are. I guess the Cowboys are probably the hardest, but the Bills are really easy with that too because you have all 3 of those other guys going at like pick 120 to 150. That one's kind of easy to pull off. All right, we are on the clock here. God, of course it's Juju staring at us.
All these week 7 buys.
I mean, I also don't mind I like both the Jacks guys here. The quarterback Dak is here. Russell's still here.
Okay, let's take Chark. Let's take Chark. Cue Chark up. Yep. And then the question is, do we want to backdoor Dak or do we want to set up? I mean, I wouldn't mind going Chark Chanel and setting up Lawrence. I think that's interesting.
I do too.
Let's do that.
Okay. And it's one of those things you set it up, but I mean, we're not going to lose sleep if we don't get Trevor Lawrence either.
Yeah. And he's going, I mean, we've got our, some routes to the rookie quarterbacks that I love taking because we got Kittle with Lance there as a possibility. We've got the Chark Chanel Lawrence. Yeah, we've got some late run quarterback options, which we were talking straight redraft. I've been doing that a ton. It's just drafting multiple quarterbacks, which is something I used to never do, but draft multiple quarterbacks but get guys with like a ton of upside. It's really pretty easy.
For sure. Yeah. Jason says the week 7 buys tilt him. I don't know if I'm too fast and loose with this, but like, I mean, I barely even care about the wide receiver buys because I know we're going to end up with 10 wide receivers on this team. Does that ever give you pause?
It gives me a little bit of pause on a team where I'm not going to draft 10. Here we kind of made our bet with what we're doing. We're pretty locked into 10, at least like a minimum of 9. So I'm not too concerned. Sometimes if you're going real wide receiver heavy early, I mean, there are teams rarely, but there are some teams where I only go 7 wide receivers if I'm a 0 RB team. And then that's where it can get dicey, where you might only have 3 wide receivers and you need them all to be healthy that week 7. Like you might only have 3 wide receivers with a non-week 7 bye. Week 7 is by far the only one that's ever been a problem for me. But I don't worry about it until later. It's hard to worry about it too much early.
I think one of the leaks in my 0 RB game is I have a hard time taking my feet off the gas of wide receivers, not necessarily because I'm just like, I want more wide receivers, but a lot of times I am going the backdoor stack route, and it's like the best possible player is like the wide receiver 4, and I'm adding on my 9th or 8th or 9th wide receiver. where I don't know what I feel like I should probably have some more 7 wide receiver teams with the 6 running backs. I have so many like 2-5-9-2 builds now that I'm like, I need to mix this up a little more.
Yeah, I was looking, let me pull up the roster construction article. I did, but it's, it's the draft as if you're right. If you're taking a lot of early wide receivers, it's kind of the same thing as the hyperfragile running back build flip. Like you want to count on using those guys as weeks the vast majority of the time, even though it's a more volatile position. And at wide receiver, what we saw last year, the most profitable groupings was taking 1 or 2 wide receivers early in 10 total, which not a lot of people did, but the people that were willing to do it won their leagues like 12 to 14% of the time, which is huge. And then the next best, though, was taking 4 wide receivers early and only taking 7 or 8. And those teams won around 11% of the time. And more people did that. As you get smaller samples, like it's more likely the win rates get inflated. But it's really interesting last year that 0RB Extreme had crazy win rates, like small sample size, but they had better win rates than Hyperfragile, just wasn't used as much. But the exact opposite happened at wide receiver. The 1 or 2 early wide receivers with 10 total just absolutely crushed. Like the top 3 rates are amazing. The top 1% rates are huge. So there's definitely something to making up for quality with quantity. But if you are going to draft that quality, you reach a point of diminishing returns with it. And that's where you probably don't want a 9th, 10th receiver if you're taking 4 early.
Yep. All right. We are going to be up here on the 8-9 turn. With this build, I'm not seeing anything really attractive here in the quarterback range. And I think also with Kittle, I'm not seeing anything super attractive in the tight end range. I'll go to running backs and wide receivers here. This is definitely the point in the draft in these builds where the running backs start to look like the better picks, and yet those aren't necessarily what we need.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine taking Mostert if we're going hyper fragile, and then going probably wide receiver. I mean, you could go Rojo and be done with it, but I don't think we need to do that. Probably wait on Marvin. I don't know. Would you wait on? Probably wait on Marvin. I think I'd go Parker and maybe give us like a Tua option backdoor.
That's not a bad look there.
I've been drafting a ton of. I mean, both Rondell and Elijah Moore are fine here too. If you want to get ahead, it's a little early. But it's just kind of the room you're in. It is what it is. What's your preference here?
Yeah, I mean, my preference is I'm normally grabbing probably Corey Davis or Elijah Moore here. Let's do Moore. I normally don't do Rondell here. It won't happen in this room, but Rondell is the most likely to still slip to us at the 10-11 turn of these guys, whereas Elijah never makes it back there. But I'll see Rondell kicking around. So I normally kind of just try to play the ADP game a little bit with that. And I grabbed Moore here, which I don't mind. It's getting a little pricey, but again, this is what happens in these hyper fragile builds. You end up having to take these wide receivers ahead of ADP to make sure you're getting the construction you want.
Yeah. And I mean, you always have to play to the room you're in. Like, we know we're going to need to fill 3 wide receiver scores a week. We want to beat people in that wide receiver 3 spot. Ideally, we're beating them in flex with a wide receiver score. And the only way to do that is to start compiling them and keep going, even if it looks gross relative to ADP. If you're in a wide receiver heavy room, you just really don't have a choice, because we've already gotten to the point where we're going to get, like diminishing returns at running back. It's possible we could have gone Rojo there and been completely done, but I think it was worth making sure we got one wide receiver with a little bit more upside.
Yeah, and a couple things. A couple plugs. If you guys missed it last week or 2 weeks ago, I put a video out on ETR. I'm going to be making some videos over there with Leone and the team, and compiled a bunch of research that Mike did, that Jack Miller did, that Herzig did, into kind of a top 10 best ball tips and tricks video. So if this is kind of, you're just getting your toes wet, you're not one of the sickos that have been drafting since May, I think it's a really good primer for getting you started on strategy. So you can check that out. And then Leone, you just put a very kind of data intensive article out looking at almost specific players within these roster constructions that we've looked at. And it was really interesting to me. Like, one of the big takeaways was just this idea of how when we get set on these more extreme constructions, we often end up with the same players in those. Like last year, if you went 0 RB, you almost for sure had either Michael Thomas or Travis Kelce on your team. And it got me thinking of like, are there ways we should be doing these optimal constructions, but with different player textures that the field isn't using at such a high rate?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. Looking at the Kelce stuff in particular, he wasn't in hyper fragile builds much at all. In fact, as I'm pulling it up, Kelce in hyper fragile builds last year was only in 4.9% of them. Average is going to be 8.3%. He was kind of tight ends that were meaningfully drafted, he was the second lowest exposure. And I just kept thinking hyperfragile builds had a really good win rate despite this leak on one of the most important players in the entire thing. Imagine if you mixed like taking more Kelce with the hyperfragile build, where you're a little bit more malleable as to who your RB2 is. You take Kelce in round 2. I think he was going in round 2 last year. And to your point too, like I think you could do hyperfragile builds even with taking, Devontae Adams or Stephon Diggs in round 1 and still make it work, to mix and match. Because what I found basically reverse engineering these strategies is hyperfragile works the way we think it does. When we hit on the RB, it really amplifies our win rates and structurally it's an edge. But 0 RB also works the way we think it is. In fact, in terms of the guys we draft early are much better in a vacuum, Pete, to be good picks than the running backs. Devontae Adams versus running back, it's Devontae Adams. So I'm kind of thinking in my head, well, how can I kind of get the best of both worlds? And maybe it's too hard to do so, but it was fun going through that article. Half the time I was like, oh man, this is really cool. And the other half of the time I was like, I don't know if this actually just all comes out in the wash and doesn't mean anything, but it was fun to write. I'm going to do a podcast on it on the Establish the Edge feed this week. Man, AJ Dillon and Rojo are both still there. What are we looking at?
Do you want to? I say we could probably tap that and be done, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I also like. Let's see what Knuckles does here. Rager or not Rager. Ruggs is normally not here in wide receiver heavy room, so I do not mind like a Ruggs Marvin or a Ruggs AJ Dillon. What do you think? Yeah.
So 2 things. Marvin's got a similar ADP to Ruggs and just fits into just absolutely smashing that stack. And then the other one, did Rojo go? Oh, Rojo just went. Okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
I would have as a tiebreaker taken Rojo over Dillon on the bye week stuff to cover McCaffrey's. But I think taking AJ Dillon and we're done. I think I would go Marvin over Ruggs and try and build the mega stack here. Although on stream, someone's probably going to snipe us, right?
Yeah, I mean, how do you think about that? I mean, I think there's a decent chance Lawrence it could be dicey. What do you think? Do you not like this as the?
I would probably roll the dice, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I would probably roll the dice on the super stack.
We're gonna roll the dice on the super. I definitely do not have any teams with all 3 jacks, guys.
I will say when I'm using the ETR ranks, I'll do what Peter just did. I'll pull them up, and even if Ruggs is like 4th on the list, if it's well past his ADP, I'll pull the trigger and take Ruggs to get some exposure well after ADP. Like I don't. The list is a guide. You can't just draft the very top guy every single time. You have to think a little bit critically, especially if you're doing multiple teams. That would have been a really natural spot to get Ruggs exposure, especially in a wide receiver heavy room. So I would have been fine with that. I kind of want to try this triple here.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot. And yeah, one thing I wanted to circle back to that thing about the article and these constructions, and I think it's almost like a human bias thing or a psychological thing where it's easier for us to employ these strategies like by the letter of the law. When they say 0 RB, even though a team where you take 1 running back and then take 8 wide receivers has more in common with the 0 RB thesis than a team where you take 4 wide receivers and then grab a bunch of other positions. We just like coloring within the lines. And I think the same thing probably happened, like you said, with those structures last year. Like once the hyper fragile structure got so popularized, people just were like, this is easy. I take 3 running backs. I don't have to think about it. I'm just taking the best available running back, 3 picks in a row, and then I'll go on my merry way. And we're now saying, if you can do those structures, but take the, dare I say, detours when they make sense, you can get the structure and get a more unique texture relative to how the field is employing that same structure.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely hit on that in the article where, you know, the point of diminishing returns becomes a little bit less clear at a position when you are willing to take some detours along the way. And, you know, a big part of why the extreme strategies work is it's kind of obvious where to cover quantity versus quality. But if you're willing to think a little bit more critically, and you almost have to if everybody else is going to do this, like last year sure was easy. Get your 4 running backs, be done, get your 10 wide receivers and not care. But if everybody's doing that, it's going to cut into the edges. So you definitely have to think a little bit more critically. It's also, you can, it's 1 year's of results, right? Which is really small sample. It can be skewed, but it's funny too. If you're a 0 RB guy or an early RB guy, you can interpret the data however you want. Like on one side, you could say, oh, hyperfragile teams barely drafted Kelsey and still had really good advance rates. Whereas 0 RB guys would be like, well, that's the whole point, is we're more likely to take Travis Kelsey than you guys are. And you can kind of get in this back and forth, but that's where I think there is this middle ground where, like, I've touted doing extreme strategies, so it probably seems weird for me to mention a middle ground now, but I do think you can mix and match philosophies a little bit by truly understanding like why each strategy is working and what are the, you know, what's dragging it down and what's propping it up.
All right, there you go, taco salesman. Get your unstacked Trevor Lawrence with your 0 RB build. I mean,
I hope you're happy.
I hope you're happy. You have 2 Jets. Could have waited for Zach Wilson. Oh, and you have Lamar Jackson already. Come on, taco salesman.
Sell some. He's going to be selling tacos to pay for his BBM entry fees.
That's right. Yeah, and it got me thinking too of like some builds I want to try out are like, say I do a Kelsey stud wide receiver and then do a hyper fragile build from the scary dead zone, but with like the DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, Travis Etienne. And like
100%.
Just flip that same structure, but just in pockets of the draft. I bet how many people have done that start. I bet it's pretty unique based on how people draft.
Yeah, if you're willing to embrace the dead zone risk, like there are some interesting things you can do, especially where the ADPs have shaked out. Oh, this is a tough spot of the draft, huh?
Yeah.
I haven't gotten Paris Campbell in a while, but it seems like an okay spot.
He was the first guy that I was going to put in here. This is also probably where I come down and overrule you.
Wait, what's quarterback? We probably do need to like take a look at the quarterback.
Oh, Baker is probably.
Yeah, I think we want to grab Baker. We can get Hooper late as our second tight end too.
I completely missed. This is kind of an absurd quarterback room. Like you're normally not having to take Baker here.
Well, what's funny is it started off quarterback light, and I think we kind of, I mean, Dak was there at the 6-7 turn, and then it just sort of flipped at a certain point.
In this, I guess I will go back to that point, and I've been talking about this a lot with people with our FFPC drafts where they kind of do the hindsight thing and be like, man, that 2v2, don't you wish you would have waited to have Mark Andrews in the 5th instead of taking Kittle in the 2nd? It's like, well, we're paying that price for Kittle to have that flexibility and not be backed in it because there's no guarantee Andrews is there in the 5th. And it's the same thing with this. Like, I'm used to the quarterback slipping generally in these rooms, and that's an easier position to fill. We happen to be in a little bit quarterback hungry room. In hindsight, it makes that early quarterback detour look better, but you don't know. You just don't know going into these.
Yeah, I've got some ideas for how we can remedy the situation, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse before the cart. Oh my God, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, Peter, with all these snipers in the room. So I got some ideas. It's probably going to be a 3 quarterback build for me, though, as much as I don't like doing those. And that's the thing, though, with people drafting more optimally, like 3 quarterback stuff isn't as bad as it used to be because the quarterback values you're getting relative to the skill player values, it's a different dynamic than it's been in the past.
Although, Mike, if you say 3 quarterbacks, that's putting us at 8 wide receivers.
No, 9. We can still go 9.
9 plus 4 is
Because
13.
we're only
Oh,
going
you're
two
right. You're
tight.
right.
We
Okay,
can
we
go
can get
9.
9. All right. Yeah, I was just like that was going to feel a little skinny, but 9 I think still works with this.
I think we can do 9. Well, let's see how it shakes out. It kind of depends. I'm not gonna if we have like Baker and like if you had like Baker and I don't know Daniel Jones, like I probably wouldn't take Jared Goff in round 18 just to take Jared Goff, right?
Yeah.
Like at that point, I take a 10th receiver. But if I can take someone, if I've got Baker and Daniel Jones, and I can take maybe a swing on a home run upside guy, that's where I might do it. Just understanding that I just do not have the weekly upside other people are going to have. Like as much as I like Baker, and I think he's a very solid pick, your weekly upside is capped, and that might hurt you come the tournament weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I will also say I do not like Baker's playoff schedule. So they're on the road in Green Bay in December, and then on the road in Pittsburgh in December to finish out. So like, it's hard to envision like Baker in the Browns scoring 45 points in those environments.
Okay. Can you go to the wide receiver room? I'm trying to knock Perriman down in our ranks a little bit, but
I know. Him and Tyrell Williams are the classic ETR guys that stare at you. You're going to get a lot of Rashad Perriman. You're going to get a lot of Rashad Penny. And you can overrule the ranks to balance your exposures sometimes, guys.
Yeah.
I just imagine like all the messages you're going to get, like when Rashad Perriman tears his ACL, is like, I have 46% Rashad Perriman.
It's also hard. Like, I do think he makes a lot of sense in best ball, but in managed, like I'm still probably not taking him, even though like mathematically, like I just don't know if the upside is there in a managed league. But yeah, to your point though, my highest drafted receiver right now is Paris Campbell at 24%, and that he was going so cheap early.
Yeah,
and it seems like his ADP might be on the downswing again with the Wentz injury stuff. But after that, I don't have anybody above 20%. And it's mostly later round guys that I'm taking over, like Eskridge, AJ Green, KJ Hamler. Got some Debo, though. Debo's my highest exposure single digit round wide receiver.
Yeah. So this will be an interesting spot here. Yeah, I still think with the Giants playoff schedule is brutal too. They're almost as bad as Cleveland on the road outdoors in Philadelphia, on the road at Chicago week 17. So I'd probably be pushing for 3 quarterback builds with those guys as well. I do like
we've got Wilson. I was gonna say we've got Elijah Moore. So we've got Zach Wilson, which makes sense to me. I feel like in this type of build, a Taysom or a Deshaun Watson makes sense.
Yeah.
If we're really swinging for it.
I mean, I think my preference here would be Wilson and Perriman, and then we can still grab the third QB later if we want. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, we can do that. Go Wilson, Perriman. There's also a chance that Wentz completely craters. People just don't want to draft him, and that's another single stack we can throw our way. And what's the stack article I looked at, actually, if you draft 3 quarterbacks and you're able to stack all of them, the win rates are really pretty strong.
Yep.
And they don't have to be huge stacks. So I think that's good. We get a pretty safe receiver I shouldn't say safe, but we get a receiver with a lot of projectable volume heading into the year, cover that week 7 bye situation for us. I think that was the right move.
Yeah. And people might, look at the ADP and be like, oh man, you're taking, I guess it's only 15 picks ahead of ADP, but Zach Wilson, but we already had to take Elijah Moore, 12 picks ahead of ADP. And it's like, if Elijah Moore smashes this year, I mean, Zach Wilson is probably having a pretty good year himself. So I just think those are always easy correlated bets to make.
Yeah, it's also two. Like, one, it's the nature of the room, and 2, in round 15, taking a guy in round 15 instead of round 16 is not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
it's when you're taking a guy in round 7 that should go in round 8. That's where it becomes a big deal.
All right, the word on the street is the Puppy 2 just dropped. I already see my life flashing before my eyes. I'm on the clock in 60 puppy slow drafts at once. Oh, there's Josh Norris breaking the news in here. Although he says soon. He says soon. The puppy too. The people want it, Leone. The people want it so bad.
I want all the sharp drafters to get distracted by the puppy, and then I'll pound out a bunch of best ball mania drafts during that time.
That's right. I want to get in the big dog as well. Although I think I'm going to wait until we're a couple weeks before the season to fire my big dog bullets.
I did one big dog, and I did it with my neighbor Dan, and we left the draft room after 18 rounds. Just totally forgot about that. It's 20 rounds. Yeah. And we ran pretty pure on auto draft, but we were pretty shaky at quarterback, and we got Taysom as an auto pick, which honestly might have been like the optimal pick for that team. And then we got Jerick McKinnon, who, I don't mind. It wasn't probably the best pick out there, but it was fine.
KZ sniped us on Hooper, Mike.
I mean, a monster, a true monster.
He's a true monster. So we're going to draft one more tight end. We're going to draft one more wide receiver, and we're going to draft one more quarterback.
Yeah. I'm really on these late running backs. I mean, we're obviously not taking one, but I'm really starting to get on Gainwell as my guy.
Yeah, I was just telling Leone, I was writing it up. One of the beat reporters is envisioning Nyheim Hines-esque season for him. I think that's an interesting it makes sense with his skill set and profile, but Miles Sanders, profiles as a very good pass catcher. I guess you could say Jonathan Taylor does as well, and it didn't change from Hines getting the pass catching work. But I guess I could see a 65-35 with Gainwell there, but they also they like Boston Scott, and they like Huntley too. I don't know. That's kind of a weird situation.
Boston Scott it sounds like the only two guys that are for sure making the team though are Gainwell and Sanders. And then I don't know how many carries, Boston Scott and Kerryon Johnson or Huntley would mix in there. So,
because we're going to probably have a decision here too. Mims is staring at us. I haven't, have you flipped Cole over Mims yet?
Not yet, but probably should. I don't see any upside from Cole, but maybe that's over. That's probably unfair of me. It's random enough. I do like Ebron here, where I think unless we want to, let's go Ebron.
Okay, so
I don't get why Ebron's hated so much. I mean,
it's just everyone hates everyone's terrified of Big Ben.
Yeah, so I would take Ebron, and then what do we have at quarterback? Sorry, can you go quarterback?
Yeah. So we have Baker and Zach Wilson, 13 and 16. A Taysom is.
I think I would roll the dice on Taysom. I haven't done it a lot, but I think I would roll the dice on Taysom.
So just to talk it, yeah. And so talk through why you would go Taysom over double stacking Big Ben.
Yeah. So for me, we're getting the benefits of the Steelers' stack upside just in concentration of targets to Ebron, to Deontay Johnson. That's how we're benefiting from it. Even if those guys do really well, it does not mean Ben Roethlisberger is going to have a huge ceiling. I mean, we saw with Carolina last year with concentrated targets, 3 top 24 wide receivers, and Teddy Bridgewater didn't crack 20 touchdown passes, didn't even come close. He was useless from a fantasy perspective. And that's kind of how I view Ben, where he might have some spike weeks here and there. He might be fine, but we've got 2 quarterbacks already that are going to be fine. We want one guy that has legitimate weekly ceiling, and that's if Taysom is a starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, he has the rushing upside. I mean, there were times during that stretch he started last year where we had him as one of the highest projected quarterbacks on the week on main slates in DFS, I remember. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know if you feel similarly, Pete, or if you would have taken Ben.
No, I have done some teams where I've taken 2 of the Pittsburgh wide receivers where I'll tack on Big Ben as my QB3. But yes, in this build specifically too, where I love the Saints playoff schedule, and if Taysom does become the full-blown starter, I mean, he's an absolute smash here. If you told people Taysom Hill will be the starting quarterback for weeks 15, 16, and 17 without a doubt, I mean, he's probably going around the like Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence area, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're just taking that swing. It's a, I don't take that swing a ton because usually I'm two quarterbacks and done. But when I'm two fringy quarterbacks and that's the way the position has evolved too, right? We're not going to get quarterback upside just by matching Baker and Zach Wilson's distributions. In the past, you might have been able to just run hot on the distributions, but 22 points, they have a capped ceiling, I guess, and some of these other guys don't. So I like at least having an out to matching, some of the really high end quarterback ceilings coming close in some of those playoff weeks. Kyler puts up 30, yeah, it'd be nice. Baker getting 20 is nice, but give me Taysom at 25 and don't believe that many points.
So now that we have our last pick, we know we're going wide receiver. I'm curious, obviously tons of different directions you can go with your last pick. I'm generally probably looking here to get a double stack on Baker or Zach Wilson. I don't think we need to worry about stacking Taysom, but I'm probably looking at a Donovan Peoples-Jones, Keelan Cole here. What do you like to do?
Yeah, exact same way. I would go DPJ or God, I'm about to be done with Mims as the reports continue to be so bad.
I know.
And now we've got a Zach Wilson team and like Mims is staring at me. So Mims or Keelan Cole. I would consider, Marquez Callaway if the other two quarterbacks weren't so easy. Callaway might even be gone. But in this spot, it's like really easy to stack the quarterbacks where the correlation is going to be a little bit higher. Yeah, Callaway's gone. He's starting to go earlier with the Michael Thomas stuff. So I would probably take Mims or Keelan Cole, I think.
I mean, the reports are like so bad. It's like
I'm fine taking Cole.
No,
I'm like adjusting my ranks like throughout, and Mims goes. So someone took Mims.
I mean, the reports, is worried. We were worried he was running with the second team, and now it's like he's running with the third team.
I know. I saw that
subsequent team. It's so weird too because it wasn't like he didn't have the like boneheaded rookie scene. Like he had bad quarterback play. He was targeted a bunch. It doesn't seem to me like he's the player that would just be like relegated to the practice squad because he's not picking up the concepts. It seems weird what's going on with him.
Yeah, he had a pretty appealing rookie year. I mean, if you're looking at it objectively, you're like, wow, that went better than we expected. He started off injured and he still was able to earn this target share. But yeah, Keelan Cole.
Yeah, let's do Keelan Cole.
I know we had Keelan Cole in the queue twice there. We're gonna try to draft two of them, but
I know it was bugging on us. Okay, yeah. So let's look at this team to wrap up here, and you can give us the overall thoughts on what you think about this squad here.
Yeah, I think CMC is alwaase a big edge early. I've been playing that 2-3 turn really. By ear, basically. And that's what we did. CEH fell instead of AJ Brown. So we took the elite tight end, which set us up for a hyper fragile build. I feel pretty good. I mean, our running backs are in a really good spot. Like if you're doing a hyper fragile, I think this is kind of an ideal way to get it, where you get the stud in CMC. And then even though it was only a little bit after ADP, I mean, we've got 3 guys after ADP. CEH 2 picks, which is kind of big early. Mostert half a round at that point, a full round on AJ Dillon, who I know we both love as a target. So I feel really good about that. And it's annoying to get sniped on our Jags onslaught stack, but we're still, betting on their pace being there and Trevor Lawrence just being good. And whether or not we have enough firepower at wide receiver will kind of make or break this team. I'm a little bearish on this team overall, I guess, just because I feel like we have a little bit of question mark of our firepower at wide receiver and a little bit of question marks over our firepower at quarterback. And usually I like to only have one position where I have that question mark.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what has happened to me when I've done the kind of more hyper-fragile teams like this, is I feel like the win rate, I feel like this team probably has a decent chance of winning our individual 12-team league. But I feel like it just does not have the wide receiver firepower to win 3, dare I say, uncorrelated tournaments.
Yeah, and that's going to be really interesting to track. One thing I'd like to see if I can get the data from Underdog, we have last year basically all the advance rates from teams that would have advanced, in this format. But then what we don't have is, like, let's say we know 20% of hyperfragile teams advance, which is above average. What percentage of those kind of make it to the next round, then make it to the next round, and make it to the, like, that would be interesting to see, kind of like your leverage on a build once you make it.
Yes.
So kind of separating out the odds of making it to the playoff rounds versus the odds of advancing once you get to the playoff rounds. So we need a breakout season, from one of those top three guys, though, for sure. And then we kind of hope the distributions just work out in our favor. In half PPR, I think it's not as bad as it seems, because you can get to some of those spike weeks without huge target shares. In full PPR leagues, it's a little harder to swallow a build like this, because the guys that are racking up 10 catches and double-digit targets every week, when they're going 8 for 8, 8 for 90, like, that's still a really big week. Like, that's 17 points. That's still really good. Whereas, Devontae Adams has like an 8 for 110 game without scoring, for example. Here, that's 15 points. One of these guys finds the end zone. We're not that far off.
Yep. All right, real quick, guys, if you haven't signed up on Underdog, the puppy did just launch. That's their next $5 tournament. Josh, 111,800 entrants, $500,000 in prizes. The action is going to be flying. And I will say this. So here's a way. If you want to get $50 on Underdog and you haven't signed up on Underdog, you use promo code Pete, you get $25 in your account. And then with my randomizer boxes, that also comes with $25. You get your bottle opener, your koozies, your dog toys, all that stuff. Leone, you just got your randomizer box, right?
I just got it. I haven't opened it yet. I got it in the mail. I'm going to have to do like a whole unboxing, I think.
With like an ASMR unboxing video.
Yeah.
But there you go. The randomizer boxes are $50. You can get free shipping with promo code Pete. So you can almost, if you haven't signed up for Underdog, you can almost essentially get the box for free, because you're getting $25 with promo code Pete. You're getting $25 in the box, and then you're getting, and it's $10 to deposit to unlock that 25. So there you go.
Lola, my parents' dog Lola, 8-month-old yellow lab, she's pretty excited about the randomizer box. I've really hyped it up to her.
The reviews from the dogs are absolutely awesome. And to wrap up here, I did see Star Kindler in the chat wanting a quick sauce. So let's do a quick review of his team, and then we will get out of here. Dak Prescott and Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, Damon Harris, Kenyon Drake, Devin Singletary, David Johnson, Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Jerry Jeudy, Bateman, Davis, Ruggs, DeMarcus Robinson, Cedric Wilson. I gave you that idea, Star Kindler. Darren Waller and Blake Jarwin here. Pretty nice construction overall. Gets David Johnson almost 30 picks after ADP. Anything we want to quibble with here, Mike?
No, I think this is a pretty strong build. And these are actually the types of teams I'm trying to do a little bit more, which is that hero RB and then going 5 running backs instead of 4, where you're able to do that because, he didn't take his second running back until round 8, 9.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like this build quite a bit. Can you go scroll down to the receivers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have a tough time drafting Bateman ahead of ADP, but like structurally, I think everything is really good here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
He kind of did that Dak backdoor stack, where I think a lot of teams that have Dak, it's because they got one of the big 3 wide receivers early, but you can backdoor stack him with one of the tight ends or Cedric Wilson. And he got, Dak at a nice price there at pick 78. I don't mind Darnold as the second pick. I would love to maybe see like a Chuba or a Terrace Marshall kind of to continue to flesh out my bet on the Panthers. But otherwise, like, this construction looks a lot like my teams. I said the 2-5-9-2s. This is definitely right up my alley.
Yeah, would have liked to see Terrace for sure. Maybe over Corey Davis, Ruggs, but you don't know for sure. You're getting Darnold, I guess, at that point. And then getting Dak 15 picks after ADP, even though you don't have the stack set up already, that between his individual weekly ceiling and then structurally what he lets you do, which is make an extremely cheap bet on QB2 that's stacked, like that's where you can definitely take an unstacked quarterback and make it work. Like that's a very big deal to get the combination of individual upside plus the structural edge of 2 QBs and doing it. And I mean, pick 78. That's like round 7, right? I mean,
Yep. Very nice team. Also made a concentrated bet on the Raiders there with Drake, Ruggs, and Waller. And he got Drake and especially Ruggs at pretty discounted prices relative to ADP. So I love it. Make a few concentrated bets on these teams. Looks pretty good to me. Sorry, Star. Couldn't sauce you too hard today. Leone, like I said, if you guys hadn't checked out his article on those data deep dives for looking at roster constructions and specific players within those constructions, I think it will help you view those strategies less rigidly than we may often do. Anything else you're working on that you'd like to plug, Mike?
I would just plug the Establisher on Draft Kit in general. It's like absolutely loaded with my content, and also Evan Silva, Adam Levitan, Jack Miller's doing stuff for us. We got Anthony Amico doing dynasty rankings. It's just absolutely loaded, and I think it's $35 or $35. So I mean, it's just absurdly cheap for the amount of content you're getting. And we also have, if you're a preseason DFS player, we have a separate preseason package as well. Levitan and the boys crush that every year. I know Levitan's been itching for preseason DFS since he didn't get his fix last year.
Yep, we get preseason back here on Thursday with the Hall of Fame game. That is going to be super fun. We got the puppy draft. Also, shout out Run the Sims. They did just end their founders pricing promo yesterday. However, you can still get $50 off. They're going to have all the tools we need for this upcoming season. Optimizers. If you want to go and mess around with the season-long projections in there, you can go and knock yourself out fiddling with target shares, market shares, all that good stuff, seeing how that impacts certain offenses. It's been a very instructive exercise for me as I try to figure out some of these situations. So we will have way more on Run the Sims here as we get closer to the season. And then another plug, we're doing a special show tonight, a special randomizer draft. My guy Silas from the Deposit Kingdom Discord, thanks to his randomizer box, which comes with raffle tickets to win guest spots on the show, he won our first spot. We're going to do that draft tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to learn all about Silas, 25 years old, lives in New Hampshire, loves the Red Sox, and we're going to find out if he's ready for the wheel tonight at 8 p.m. So join us for that. Thank you to Leone for joining us. I'm going to have a video dropping on the ETR Twitter in the next couple days, Mike. I think we're going to try to turn these draft rooms around after we ruined it this offseason.
Yeah, enough of these wide receiver heavy draft rooms, you know? I want to be able to do hyper fragile and still get 6 wide receivers I really like. Come on.
That's what we're going to do. The campaign is launching soon. Thanks again to Mike. Check him out over at ETR. I will see you guys tonight. Have a great week.